Hi everyone, welcome to episode 6 of In AI Era with Ragnar and Tina. Hi Tina, how are you doing?
I'm good, and I am so excited for today's topic. We're going to discuss Copilot Cowork versus agents versus Copilot. But before we dive in, did you bring a AI concept of the week?
I know for those who don't know, every episode we bring in a new topic for concept of the week. But before I bring in my topic, Tina, I have a request. I don't know what's your topic, but can you please explain plugins because it goes in hand with our thing? I hope you can switch to plugins for me, please.
Sure. So I will do plugins then as my concept of the week.
Thank you.
So a plugin is it's a concept that was started by Anthropic. So it's for Claude Code and Claude Cowork originally at least. And the idea is that it's a custom collection of slash commands, agents, MCP servers, and hooks that you install kind of as one thing. And then all of these concepts combined create an extension point that you can use to customize your experience with Claude Code or Claude Cowork. And of course, now we're using it more as a broad term across the industry. So a lot more vendors have adopted plugins, and we can talk about how Microsoft has done this in this episode. But let me just make it a bit more visual. Do you remember in one of our episodes we discussed that MCP is the kitchen, it's like the technical part,
Yeah.
and then skills would be the recipes. And so if you have a skill, you would get a better result because it would follow the steps in the recipe instead of just randomly throwing food together hoping to get to a specific result. So I would say plugins is like getting Uber Eats. So of course there is a kitchen, there is a recipe, there's probably a lot of other things going into that, but you don't have to worry about that. You just say, hey, I want to eat something. Well, how do I get that? I press this button and out comes Uber Eats. So that's how I see plugins. It's a way to get a meal without worrying about the underlying implementation because that's all encapsulated by the plugin.
Okay, thank you. So I think we should circle this back with my concept of the week was going to be MCP again, so we can connect the dots for people who are listening for the first time on how Cowork and Copilot work. So in my view, MCP is the standard way, like you mentioned, Anthropic released this as a standard way to expose all the tools, and plugins actually are using these MCP tools as well. And like Tina mentioned, we shared about this MCP before. So it's a standard connection for your agents to work with these exposed third-party tools or other data and other things that is in your system. So I'm very excited to see the demo and other things that we're going to show in the end, Tina. So for this, Tina, I have a question, which is, this week you shared a video on your channel about how Cowork works with a plugin for Dynamics 365. What I really want to untangle is that there is a confusion between what is a Copilot agent, that is which is M365 agent using MCP, and what is a Copilot Cowork that uses a plugin. So can you help us with that confusion, maybe?
Absolutely. And it's fair to be confused because the word Copilot, as everyone has pointed out, pops up in too many Microsoft products. So it's difficult to understand if something is called Copilot Cowork or it's called M365 Copilot, how these things fit together. But they are built very differently. And we can dive into the details in this conversation.
Awesome. So let's start there then. If M365 user, let's say I'm in Word, I hit the Copilot button, right? It helps me write a paragraph. That's the mental model I'm thinking because that's how we started our journey in Copilot. So what's the one sentence that explains Cowork to do that then?
My experience with Copilot is in M365, and it can be in M365, the chat that you have, the M365 Copilot, or within one of the apps like Word or PowerPoint, is that it helps you do the next thing or one thing faster, right? So it can be summarizing that meeting, writing that document, coming up with the design. It does that one thing faster and very well. Whereas Cowork can do the whole thing, right? The whole process, not just the summarizing the meeting, but the whole process of that you want to do. Why are you summarizing it? It's because you want to put it in an email and you want to send it to a customer, and will co-work will do the whole thing. And I think it's so obvious because we hear the word Copilot, and it is literally a Copilot, right? It's a sidekick that follows your lead, but it just responds to you. It's not the pilot and it won't take the lead. Whereas with Cowork, it's more of a teammate and it can do things proactively and on your behalf.
Okay, that makes sense. So to unpack it, what I'm thinking is, like you mentioned, Copilot literally is like you are the orchestrator, you're asking something, and you are doing all the work. But Cowork is more like you mentioned, you're hiring a junior colleague, or that's the co-worker aspect of it. So it makes sense now. So Copilot is you being the orchestrator, and in Cowork you hired or you gave task to your coworker, and they get the job done for us.
Exactly. So with Copilot, regardless of whether it's embedded inside the apps or if it's in M365, it's a co-author. Right? You're driving it, you're getting it to do the next step quicker and better maybe than you could have done it. Whereas Cowork is more of a workspace, I would say. It works alongside M365, and you would delegate a multi-step job to it, and then you would walk away, and it just executes that. And I think this walking away part is very important because there's a huge hype with agents like OpenClaw, and I really love my Claw Pilot that is currently just internal Microsoft. But all of these apps are running on local hardware, so it needs to be always on, right? So if I am chatting with Copilot and I switch off my laptop, it stops whatever it's doing. But Cowork is 100% designed to run in the cloud. And actually, there's a really good YouTube video from the one of the engineers who's building this, and we can link to that below. And he explains how everything is in the cloud. And so if you do your prompt and press enter, you can switch off your laptop, you can walk away, and it will still execute that prompt and finish that workflow. So it's really incredible to see how it's running in the cloud and completely, on its own and, independently.
Awesome. I like that idea of, we also spoke about hosted agents before. So basically, Cowork is hosted elsewhere. So when you give it a task, what it does is it does it on offline from your system. So it doesn't have to be online on your computer. And the thing I love about Cowork, Tina, is you could do like 5, 6 tasks. You hit enter, 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 and you're running 5 instances, and you don't have to be on the tab in a way. So that's my favorite feature. But also, as you're speaking, I really want to dive into, can we go capability by capability, maybe like few capabilities that you can think of? The first thing many of the users ask about is memory. Even I'm curious on what you're thinking. So with Copilot M365, every session feeds fresh, right? So does Cowork remember any of these things? What do you think is happening?
So it does actually have a persistent memory. So if you tell it on Monday, I prefer status updates to be bulleted lists, not paragraphs, it will do that for your next update. So it will remember what your preferences are. And of course, in my case, it remembers that I don't like EM dashes. So when I ask it to generate a piece of text, it knows never to use EM dashes.
Okay, so that's the real difference for me in my view, because in Copilot has some grounding in your recent files and emails maybe, but it's not building a long-term picture of who you are. Like you have to put it in every agent that you use, don't use M dashes. But in Cowork, you say it once or you do something and it will remember. Also, I was thinking M365 Copilot is more like a reactive assistant. I know you can make it proactive as well by flows and other things, but Cowork is like an autonomous workflow once you give it an objective. Is that a right way to frame that?
Yes, I think it's definitely a spectrum between how proactive they will be and how much they will plan and execute on their own.
Okay, so now that we have these two, especially with the video you made about Dynamics 365 working with plugins, I have a really important thing that I want to understand is there are two options now with the MCP with the plugin. I see Copilot M365 hitting like broad set of possible audience. We were aware of it already. Every knowledge worker, every casual user were using that. How do you bring that into this two options that we have now?
So I think there's still a place for both. At least I still use both. And I think it depends on what you want to accomplish, right? Perhaps you just want to quickly review a meeting and you could just do that from within the meeting tab, you summarize with Copilot, or quickly summarize a slide or something. It's think of things that takes you just seconds or a few minutes to do. Whereas I think with Cowork, it takes longer to do. And we're going to see that with the demo. Like it really takes some time to do things. So perhaps I'll show you a demo where we can run the prompt, but that'll change to a tab where it already executed. So you should not be using Cowork for things that you want an instant answer because it's not designed for that. It's designed for power users, project leads, people that have repeatable workflows that they want to set up as a recurring thing and that they want to be able to execute autonomously, but with taking time.
Understand. So time horizon is like really one of the main differences as well, where you could assign a task that will take longer and you don't have to keep your laptop on or you don't have to think other things. You could go do your work while your coworker is doing the things then.
Yes. So think of M365 Copilot as seconds to minute tasks and Cowork really minutes to hours, spread across many automated runs. And yeah, we'll see that in the video, in the demo. It takes time. But then, of course, it can do vastly more complicated things. So that time offset is often worth it.
So I know I want to put you on spot maybe, but can you give me like a side-by-side example task of how Cowork and Copilot in 365 agents differ maybe, or how we can do that?
Sure. So let's say I get a complicated email that I need to respond to. Perhaps in Copilot, I would just say summarize this email thread just to see sort of in 5 seconds what is this about, so I can get a judgment of what I want to do next. Whereas in Cowork, I can say, okay, I want you to use this email, pull together a customer brief for a meeting that I have tomorrow, and you need to look at the last 6 months of emails with them, check the calendar for anything that we discussed in our past meetings and the transcripts, and also look at the web for any news that this customer have, and then anything that we still owe them, or put that in a 5-page briefing document and create this slide deck as well. And this is kind of what Cowork is built for. It can do multi-source research, cross-referencing across internal and external data, and then it can judge what is important and what matters, and it produces a result at the end that is more than just a summary. And so, it's a really bespoke, multi-step process that could take a person hours to do. And it's obviously not something that you might want to schedule, right? Because you're not going to have a weekly brief with this customer, but then before that 6 monthly, brief that you do with them, you could set up something like this.
Yeah, I like the second one because in Copilot 365, if I wanted to do this, I have to build them, pre-build them. If I add a new task to it, it does not have that built, so it won't do it. But in Cowork, it will actually go figure out how to do things as well, which is the aspect I really like. And also in Researcher and others, we might be able to collect the data, might even be able to say, create me a PDF or a deck, but it's like all predefined. Whereas in Cowork, you could just say, do the research and create me a PDF or create me an executive report. It does all of them without me pre-creating that agent in a way. So I like that aspect of ad hoc. You could think of something new that you want that agent or Cowork to do, and it gets the job done, right?
Yes, absolutely.
In other sense, I also have a quick question on the integration aspect. We worked a lot on these MCPs. Copilot Studio has come a long way because of all the integrations that we have built. And that's basically the strength, and it's actually all native to the app as well, right? So in the world of integrations, where is Copilot Cowork now, and what do you think it can do and help in excelling things maybe? What do you think of those aspects?
I think what's interesting with Copilot is that it's within these apps, so it really has good depth, right? You can make really impressive slide decks with the Copilot in PowerPoint, but Cowork has a bit more of a broader reach, right? So it doesn't just go deep into each app; it goes across the whole Microsoft graph, and so it can pull together things, right? Like if you're in the PowerPoint and you're using Copilot, it wouldn't necessarily be able to pull from your emails. But Cowork can pull from your emails, your calendars, and then read a SharePoint file and then use that to create a slide deck. So it's a bit more about broader integration.
Okay, so the cross-app orchestration is all happening within the Cowork without us knowing which orchestration we need. It figures out what apps it needs to talk to.
Exactly. And it has full web certs, not just grounding. And so it can do this thing like the recent news or like a customer's last earning calls, everything within my workspace, and then synthesize that.
Okay, so I work from IT background. I come from IT manager. I was leading IT teams. So I want to cover it in terms of the IT aspect. What is the governance and few other things that you considered or are looking for this Cowork to be successful for IT teams to implement this?
So it has the same, Microsoft 365 tenant boundary. So it has purview compliance, and it adheres to data residency commitments. And in that video that I mentioned with the engineer, he also talks about that. So we can still link that below, and then he can go in a bit more deeper into the security.
Thank you. I also feel like maybe you can say you're doing this in the demo, but I think one of the things I really want to dig into is plugins, tools, skills, Copilot, Cowork. All of this is happening, and it's sometimes too much for a customer to know which one to do. What is your idea there? And can you please dig into that and help us? Or maybe you can say I'll demo it.
No, it's a great question. I think what is interesting is that it's about the data, but not just the data. When you talk to Copilot and M365, it's mostly ingesting data. It's mostly researching or like pulling in data and reading it and then synthesizing it. But Copilot is not good at doing actions, at least not the vanilla one in M365. Cowork is much better at reading data and then also writing to it. And that's where the tools and plugins are going to come in. So it can not just use MCP servers and plugins and connectors to get data, but then it can also write it back.
Okay. Also, I know you made small video for us, but can you give us like a one concrete example for let's say F&O, finance and operations? Those are a lot of our customers. Because a lot of our customers, when they're running F&O, let's give them an example of how this Cowork would work.
Sure, yeah. So if you have the Dynamics 365 ERP plugin in Copilot, or let's say you have the integration in a Copilot Studio agent, you can ask it questions like, what is our top 5 overdue invoices? And it will get the data and it will summarize it. Maybe it does a bulleted list or something.
Okay, in that case, I'm still doing all the work on my side, right, with that agent?
Exactly.
Okay.
And you're steering it, yes. But with Cowork, you can do the same question and get the same data, but then you could also make it do a visualization or a chart. You could get it to do a PowerPoint or something. And then because it also has Work IQ, it can actually then send emails to those customers, or it can trigger approval workflow, or if you need to update those records, it can actually do it.
So the Copilot stops where here is your answer. Go do whatever you want to do. And Cowork keeps going. Here is your answer, but your boss might expect it this way. So here is the report for executives. Here's the report for your customers then.
Exactly. And that's the pattern across every system, not just F&O. Copilot plugins are really conversational connectors, but with Cowork, you have skills and agentic capabilities. And Work IQ gives them this sanctioned government way to write back into the system of record.
Okay. So going back to my IT question, which means governance bar matters a lot more for Cowork than the Copilot because actions have consequences. I don't want it sending an email. I don't want it doing something on my behalf unless we really looked into this. So do you agree with that we need a higher governance bar for Cowork?
Absolutely. And that's why the Work IQ actions go through a policy and approval gates. And there's admins can choose what they allow and what needs human confirmation. So it is high risk, more high risk to use these kind of things, and Cowork is aware of that and treats it that way.
So high risk, high reward, I think that's where
Exactly.
So if I'm building a strategy for my org, the rule of thumb is Copilot plugins for I want to ask questions of the system, and Cowork skills plus Work IQ for I want the agent to operate the system on my behalf. Is that the right way to frame it?
Yes, that's how I would see it. But I think it's much easier if you see how it works. So let me just show you how incredible this is.
I'm excited for the demo.
Okay, so this is a demo environment that I have, and I'm going to go to aka.ms/cowork. That's the easiest way to get to it. What this will actually do is it just takes you to M365, and you'll see that it takes a second, and then it refreshes the page, and it takes you into Cowork. So you could also just go to your M365 chat and then select Cowork. If it's not there yet, then you can just go to all agents and add it. But I like to use this AKA link because it takes me there directly. Then one thing that is important to note is that this is somewhat based on Claude Cowork. So that means it's built with Anthropic models. And so you will have to have Anthropic models enabled in the tenant to be able to do it. It only supports Anthropic models, but in the future, it will support more models for sure, especially as it flip-flops a little bit between which vendor is actually good with models and which are not. So it's important to to do that, I'm going to make it bigger like that. Okay, and then we discussed plugins today. So if I go over here, you can see I have the Dynamics 365 ERP plugin already enabled. And if we go here, you can see which environment it's connected to. And I have a video on YouTube on how to do this setup, because there's a couple of switches that you have to flip, not only here, but also in finance and operations. And I'll link that video below if you want to do this part of the setup. But just to show you, there's many other plugins. So these are the ones that we currently have out of the box: customer service, sales, but also very interesting ones like Fabric IQ, Microsoft Admin Center MCP, Windows. So really great. But I just currently have the ERP one set up. Then the other thing that is interesting is that here you have the skills. So to get to skills, you'll go to add to our content, and then you can see files, meetings, emails, chat, all of these things, and also skills. And there is a bunch of skills that are out of the box, like PDF, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. All of these are out of the box. But then you can also add custom skills. So if I scroll down, you'll see I already have a couple of custom skills in this environment, like D365 customer onboarding. I have a KPI dashboard builder. I have a visual designer for PowerPoint. And you sent me a skill this morning called Quality Hold Manager, which I have already installed. And one of the easy ways that you can install this is you could literally just go here and say upload images and files, and then select that skill where you have it downloaded somewhere, or from a cloud source. And then you could just go back into skills. There is a skill called skill management. And so I could just say, here's the skill, and then use /skills. And then if I say, hey, please add the skill, it will add it automatically. So that's one way that you could add the skills, by doing it, just dropping it in here and asking Copilot to add it. And actually, I can show you how I've done that in the past. So I uploaded this skill file. I used /skills, installed the skill across all sessions, and then it showed me that it installed it. And I can show you where this goes. It actually goes into, here. It actually goes into your OneDrive. That's how Cowork works in the cloud, right? So it goes into OneDrive, into My Files, Documents, Cowork, Skills. And then you can see here are some of the custom skills that I've installed. This is the Quality Hold Manager.
But we can also upload them here, right, Tina? So is there
Exactly. So you can just manually upload them here. You could just go and create this folder and do this, and then refresh the session. It will check again what's in the skills folder, and it will add the skills here.
Amazing.
Do you want to tell me about this use case? So you sent me the skill without much context, and you also send me an example, which looks like this, of how to use the skill.
Yes. So one of the things is we always think of building new agents, and sometimes you don't need an agent for all the things you need for a specific thing. In this scenario, there was a request for like a quality hold for a certain PO receipt or something. So what I realized was I don't need to build a new agent for this. I could create a skill. And we've spoke about this in our previous episodes, where a single agent with different skills can act as a different agent. And here, as Cowork can do a lot of these things, my thinking was, if I'm a quality engineering manager in a F&O, you get a lot of batches with different things. And if there is an issue with a different batch or something, you need to put them on hold or something. How would I do that with an agent? So you could use a quality hold manager and give it a, like in this case, tolerance of 0.02 to mm, right? So if a measurement of something is wrong or something, put those items in the hold is the idea. So I shared you the skill as well as an example. And now my goal was, with this, basically, your Cowork has become a quality hold manager agent. So that is what I'm very excited. And the plugin enables that for us is the idea there.
Exactly. And we can give it a spin. So I'll start a new session in Cowork. The plugin is enabled. And then I could use the skill that we've installed, the Quality Hold Manager. Then I'll just paste this prompt that you share with me. So it will show the full quality hold picture for this PO receipt.
Tina, I think, like you said, the quality hold manager can do the thing, and it's going to go and find these things for us. I also want to see, like, how do we stop this session, or can I just jump into your next session?
You can just jump into a new session. So I just want to show you here, you can see that it is using the skill. And then if I jump back, you can see here what different sessions you had. And this one is now completed, but if it's still running, it will just have it in process here. And we could just start a new session. So let's do that. If we start a new session, I'm going to start this one. I'm going to go back, use the same prompt. And here you can see it's now executing both of these sessions in parallel.
I also would love to see, is the schedule thing same as Copilot schedule? We could schedule daily things to run for us.
I think you would just ask it, can you schedule this? Let's try that. This doesn't make sense. We can do this one.
We could do like, what
Can
is
you
the
schedule
yeah.
this task? What's scheduled? You've asked about scheduled prompts. So I just asked it if it could schedule this to run daily. And then it will be able to do that. It will just ask me if I wanted to do it for a specific hold, for any failed incoming holds, or for all active quality holds. So it will actually think about what this prompt is and if it's good to reuse multiple times. And then it will think about what would make it more useful, maybe for all or for one thing specific. And then you can just choose a selection here and submit, and then it will go ahead and schedule this based on the selection.
That itself is amazing, Tina, because in the other agents, we have to create a adaptive card and we have to think of those, but it came up on the fly, which is amazing. So
Incredible, right? And I can even have it run in its own session, or I can have it run in the same session every day.
Awesome. So thank you. And I think this is a great way for us to jump into. Thanks for the demo first and foremost. We'll link your main video for all of you guys who wants to check the main video as well. So Tina, if you want to leave us with one thing, or which tool to pick, why do you pick and which tool do you want to say for which usage?
So I would say if I'm in the app right now and I'm doing one thing and I want to do it faster, I'm going to use Copilot because it's so convenient. It's right there. I don't have to switch to anything. But if I have a multi-step job, especially something that I want to do repeatedly for a process, then I'm going to do Cowork. So I don't see them as competitors yet. I see them as something that you can both use. But I also wanted to ask you, do you think that Cowork will replace agents that we build for M365? Do you think that the boss agent, the only agent that people will now use, will be Cowork?
In my view, no, because what's going to happen is there will be a lot of times all the plugins are not available. And also, Cowork might be a really great case for doing certain things on the fly, but you give a lot of power to Cowork compared to what the guardrails should be. In my view, agents, the reason they work is their harnesses are much more secure, much more built based on different industries. So I see different parts of me using different tools at different times, like you mentioned. So it's like, do I always take a hammer to do every job? If I have a screw, I'm going to use a screwdriver. And if I have a nail, I'll use a hammer. So that still applies here for us, in my view. And like you mentioned, this whole session, one thing I learned, which is co-author versus delegate. So if I need to be a co-author, I'll still use different agents. I also think that agents have a lot more capability if you really build it the way you want it. In Cowork, sometimes you give it to the agent to decide what it wants to do. Though you can control with the skills, I feel like there will be a lot of instances where a lot of regulations need it to do a certain thing in only one way for auditability purposes. So if you want to do audit and make sure it's working the same way every time, I will pick agents. But if I want to get things fast and I want to just delegate, I would use Cowork. Is that the right framing, you think? What is your thoughts?
Yes, I think that makes sense. Yeah. Great summary. I think we can leave it at that. So that's it for episode 6. If you have any questions, put them in the comment. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you. And we're doing this every week. So if you have questions, please reach out and we'll read your questions and I try to answer those as well. Bye.